Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and we got a special little one here for you. It's not going to be too long, but it's worth it, totally worth it. We're going to be talking about DC Special, issue number 19. Now, DC Special is a very, dare I say it, special kind of comic book. All the titles are titled something different. They're all titled something different, yet they're still numbered throughout. The DC guys knew what was going on. Nobody else had any clue what was going on. But this is a fun series. They have a bunch of things. Like the previous issue had, it was a Sergeant Rock special, and it's not the only one they had. They had a couple of crossovers, and the first one, like an earlier one was a Superman story, another one, and they weren't all called DC Super Special. All right, they weren't all called the same thing. So this particular one, issue number 10, is actually the first and I think only telling of Light Ray's origin story, case in point. Meanwhile, they won't have any more origin stories until this issue number 19, where they just go crazy, start giving a bunch. So this is a fantastic series. Dude, if you've got a comic book store that has these comic books in a row, ordered, numbered, and they know to keep them together, that is a good, knowledgeable comic book store. That's real talk. That's real talk. All right, so in this story, in this comic, you got a whole bunch of stories, mostly origin stories. All right, so you got the secret origin of Wonder Woman, which it's just a retelling of her story. Everybody knows her story for the most part, but they give a little extra. There was a fun little part in here where they talk about, if the feet of man ever touch the ground, so that's why Wonder Woman actually, Princess Diana actually picked up Steve Trevor when he landed on Paradise Island, and it was called Paradise Island. That was before they started to call it Themyscira. So picked him up so that his feet would never actually touch the ground. Cool. I'm saying I dug that. So you got the origin of the Superman Batman team. Cool. they've teamed before, and it's just another little story they got to throw in. I'm not complaining about this. You got a Flash story called The Mystery of the Elongated Man. Now, yeah, this is Ralph Dibny, and this is his first appearance. DC Special, issue number 19. So, DC Special Series, issue number 19. Yes, volume 1. So then you're going to have the Legion of Superheroes, Brotherly Hate, and it's just a story about the Injustice League or the League of villains, whatever. They have a bunch of different names. You know the deal. They got a Hawkman, the Mask of the Marauders of Earth. The Masked Marauders of Earth. It's actually a pretty fun story. It's the first appearance of the Manhawks. That is interesting. That's a good one there. You got Batman, the origin of Robin. Cool. No complaints. You got the Supergirl from Krypton. This is going to be the first appearance of Supergirl. It's also going to be the first appearance of Anti-Kryptonite. What? Yeah, they're not joking around with this. But the story that we're going to be talking about is how Aquaman got his powers. All right, and this is going to be the first time that we actually get a real origin story for Aquaman. This is the first time that we get his parents' story. The first appearance of his parents. The lighthouse and the island there is not actually called Amnesty Bay yet, but give it time. Give it time. And it's also technically the first appearance of Atlantis. Technically. All right? So anyway, let's get... just really quick. The writer on this, Robert Bernstein, and the artist is Ramona Fradon, and the colorist, Bob LaRose. So, how Aquaman got his powers. Basically, Aquaman's just the first panel is just a young Aquaman with his dad, and his dad's got three swordfish in a tank, and he's like, "You got to control them, son. You got to talk to them telepathically. You can do it. You can control them. All right." And then we skip right on to Commander Haskell. Is this guy. This is also his first appearance, I believe. Anyway, through Retrofit at the very least. So he is this commander of this destroyer, and they start launching, plang, a bunch of atomic warheads that are depth charges. So atomic depth charges. Like, come on, man. we're getting a little crazy now. Like, atomic, really? It needs to go like that far? So Aquaman goes undersea. He gets the electric eels to stop these things. He goes down and he disarms them, and then he sends some whales to woof and push away the charges and all that stuff. And he's just really going out of his way to protect the area. And he climbs up, and they're like, "Oh, we're checking on radar. We don't know what's going on." Aquaman's like, "It was actually me." And he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, calm down there, Commander. Calm down, all right? Listen, let me tell you a little story about myself. I need you to stop throwing these things around here, okay? I need you to stop dropping nuclear bombs in this area." "Well, no, the Navy specifically said that this is the place we're supposed to." "Yeah, I don't really care about your Navy, okay? What I need you to do is such and such." And he's talking to him. He's talking to him, and he's giving an entire story. Mind you, if this was modern day Aquaman, where it's like, okay, we're sick and tired of this guy being treated as a seahorse riding joke. Listen, this guy is no joke. He would jump up and he'd be like, "Hey, one more, I dare you, and you're gonna force my hand. Atlantis is declaring war against you, punk." Here, it's a very different story. Here, it's a very different story. So, he's just telling him, he's like, "Listen, let me tell you about my story." Commander Haskell's like, "Oh my God, your story has never been told before." He's like, "Well, there's only one person who knows it, and that's me. And now I'm going to tell you about my story." It's kind of cool because it's like, wow, this guy's, he's like, he's giving him the nod, he's giving him the rub. You know what I'm saying? He's telling him, he's like, "Hey, man, I'm going to let you in on a secret." And he's really getting into it. Like I said, not the Aquaman of today. The Aquaman of way back when, he was a much nicer person. I presently like the current Aquaman better. Regardless, Aquaman's cool no matter how you look at it. So he tells a story about how he was born. He's like, "Oh yeah, man, my dad was in the Navy of some sort. He was a seaman, and my mom was just this chick. She was lost at sea, and it was like, oh, she was a damsel in distress, but nothing was really hurting her. She was just kind of like, hey, these big waves that weigh multiple tons are crashing against me, and I'm okay. It's just, I'm bored. I'm on a plank of wood, for crying out loud." So he goes and he rescues her. It's like, wow, man, she is tough. How'd she do this? So, he fell in love with her at first sight. She apparently loved him back because, they wound up having a kid together. This little kid they named Arthur. Nobody important in this story. And this one day he falls overseas. And his dad's like, "Oh, my God!" He's freaking out. And his mom's like, "No, relax. He's just going to get a little swim in." And the kid's already swimming. Little baby. Kid's already swimming. It's like, wow, look at this kid go. So all of a sudden he hits his head against a derelict, which just, it could be a ship, it's going the wrong way. It's just something along those lines. He hits his head. He goes undersea. And his dad's like, "Oh my God!" And freaks out. He jumps in the sea and he's looking for an hour for his kid. He's like, "I'm going to find the kid's body. Because my son is dead. He's been undersea for an hour." But Aquaman is, Arthur is sitting under the sea playing with a turtle and a mackerel and a little conch shell. And he's like, "He's been under here for an hour. How's that possible?" He just doesn't get it. It's like, you married a mermaid, dude. You married a mermaid, all right? He's talking to his wife. He's like, "How could this be happening?" One day, the cove where they were at, I just want so bad to say Amnesty Bay, but the cove where they're at, they get a shark attack, like infested with sharks. And he's like, "Oh my God, Arthur's in the sea." And he goes over to try to save him. And Arthur's like sitting there petting the shark, big teeth, and he's just petting the shark. "Oh, you're a good little shark, good little jaws. Have you been washing? Have you been brushing your teeth?" Like, he's seriously like, what is up with this kid? So suddenly mom gets sick and she's on her deathbed. So finally she's like, "Okay, finally, now I'll tell you the story." Like, she knows how to keep a secret. Like, she is OG. She's just like, nope, stitches get stitches. She's not playing around. So finally on her deathbed, she's like, "Fine, I'll talk." So she came from this underwater kingdom called Atlantis. And she was exiled because she wanted to see this, the surface. It's like, "Oh, you want to see the surface? Well, then you could stay on the surface." So she was exiled. She could never come back. Granted, this will, of course, change drastically throughout the history of Aquaman, but this is the first time the origin story is really being told. So, bada boom, all right? So, basically, after his mom dies, Arthur is trained by his dad very, very haphazardly. It's like, "Okay, I'm going to capture all these different sea life creatures, and you are going to learn how to control them, because that's what your mom said that you can do." And I've kind of seen it. So, wow, man. It's like a year later or something like that. He teaches this kid everything. The kid, like, he can memorize. He's memorized all 150 species of shark in the North American area. Like, name them off, rattle them off by memory. Dude's awesome. He gets homeschooled, but once a year he'll go to the public schools and whatnot to take a test, test out of that grade, and then he'll go back and do his home learning. He was originally afraid of the high jump. He couldn't do the high dive. You know what I'm saying? Like diving from way up high. He's a little afraid of heights. And his dad taught him to overcome that by pretending that he was drowning. And his son is, washing the windows on the lighthouse. He's like, Dad, I can do it. And he jumps into the sea. And he's like, you were faking. Good job. I could do that. I could do that now. So it's a proud moment. Anyway, he just impresses everybody with what he's capable of doing. And at one point, he's just like, so that's basically my origin story. You and I are the only people who know this story now. So Commander Haskell's like, oh man, that's a really awesome story. But you still didn't tell me why I shouldn't still be atomic depth charging this area. So he's like, come here, whisper in your ear. He's like, wow, okay, Aquaman, I'll never do it again. Promise, the Navy will stay far away. Bye. He's like, thank you, Commander. Bye-bye. I'm like, what's going on? Well, as it turns out, this little glass enclosure of this area called Atlantis is down there. And it turns out that's actually where Atlantis was. So if they start depth charging, then the people would have been hurt. They would have been injured. And, he would have probably lost the entire civilization. So at the time, he'd never actually gone back to Atlantis. So this was a really good way to introduce Atlantis, to explain, hey, this was always the case with Aquaman. And eventually we would start having some really cool stories that did involve Atlantis. Mind you, Namor had this story, almost this exact same story, for crying out loud. You know what I'm saying? For the longest time. That's cool. I'm cool with this. All right. But this was actually a really good way to just say, you know what? It's a good story. We're going to make it our own. Bang. This is how we're going to do it. And they very easily retconned this into the story. So all of a sudden Atlantis is a part of his. And later on it would be considered his birthright. The throne would actually be considered his birthright. So really, really fantastic. So I love this story. As a huge Aquaman mark, this issue was doubly good because you also had Hawkman in here. And love Hawkman also. So fantastic issue. If you guys are able to get your hands on it, cool. If I can ever find the stuff, I'll try to remember to come back here and, throw it on here so somebody can get a chance to grab it. But I will have a whole bunch of other Aquaman type stories and sales like that down below. And yeah, but regardless, really good book. And I love these old origin stories, these old origin books where they would tell you the little secret origin of so-and-so. It was always something really creative that they were just able to insert right in. And mind you, it's because I read comic books like this. I scour the world to try and find, not necessarily the world, but I scour, North America to try and find books like this. I love these little secret origin stories. And they're able to fit so many different origin stories in one little 20-some-odd page comic book. And I wonder, how come the movies can't make the stories as short as this? The origin stories. Why can't they just surmise them up like these? It is what it is, man. But fantastic book, highly recommended. Guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.